Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine. May we not quarrel. Peace. Let's get back to the basics. We are studying Bhagavad Gita, and I want to bring us back to the context of this course. Because the Bhagavad Gita is not just some story that happened a couple of thousands of years ago, which is now simply as a model or a learning guide, which is both a Dharma Shastra, how to live, but also a Moksha Shastra, that is the path to liberation. But Bhagavad Gita is something that every human being on earth, man or woman, at all times, in all ages, undergoes. And that is a fundamental problem, which we will now actually do as a group, as an exercise to see what the context of the Gita is and what Arjuna was facing. Chapter 1 in the Bhagavad Gita starts with Arjuna Vishada Yogaha, which means the yoga of Arjuna's grief. Now, how can Arjuna's grief become 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita? So the question is, why is it called yoga of Arjuna's grief? Because at Kurukshetra, when Arjuna was arrived between the two sides, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, he was positioned strategically by Krishna with the chariot to be facing specifically Drona and his grandsire, his teacher. Krishna could have easily got Arjuna to be facing towards Duryodhana, who was Arjuna's enemy, at least the way Duryodhana saw it. If Krishna placed Arjuna or drove Arjuna's chariot to or in front of Duryodhana, then what kind of thoughts do you think Arjuna would have if he was facing Duryodhana and not his grandsire and his dear teacher? See the difference? If you're in life, that's what Kurukshetra is. It's a metaphor. If you're in this life and you're looking and you're placed in front of something that instigates a like or dislike and causes one to act accordingly to that like and dislike, which is not in favor to your growth, then if you don't have guidance, then the person will innocently end up proceeding anyway into the event which they're exposed to. So what does this mean? It means that we need education. We need to know what is right. This is called Samanya Dharma, that is universal Dharma common to all. Nobody wants to get hurt here. Nobody likes to be cheated or to cheat. Nobody likes to steal or be stolen from. Nobody likes to be disrespected or looked down upon. All of these traits belong to Samanya Dharma, which we all relate to, and every human being upon birth is instantly ingrained or they are provided by this Samanya Dharma, which means you don't have to learn not to steal. You don't have to learn not to kill another person. It automatically comes. So Arjuna had this contact, this clarity of mind, thus he was aware of Samanya Dharma, whereas Duryodhana was completely what we call egotistic. In other words, the ego is so covered by one's own notions that they are not even able to perceive what is right amidst my own family. Because remember, Duryodhana and Arjuna, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they were together since childbirth. And from the beginning, the Kauravas, they started designing, or they started forming jealousy and envy towards the Pandavas. Whereas the Pandavas did absolutely the best they could at every moment. And even though they were deceived, for example, the wife of the Pandavas was insulted in the public, all of these acts by the Kauravas were performed, and yet they were forgiven by the Pandavas. Yeah, so it's causing you to see the extent to how much this dharma, this forgiveness can go. Constantly forgiving if we are in touch with samanya dharma. Because think about it this way, even if somebody hurts me, what is the most common natural response to do? That's right, retaliate back. But see the trick? Because now I have fallen, I have violated my own dharma. Yes, they have hurt me, but from this moment on, I have a choice to look at it in the light of forgiveness, or from the whole, or I can, what? Respond or react out of contact with samanya dharma. Then I also become another Duryodhana. You see the problem? So this happens. So that's why we need to be strong in holding what our values is. What is having that clarity? What is good and right? Otherwise, it's so easy by the world's subtle nature to suck us in, and then we start to create tactics or intellectual games in order to get back in a more sophisticated spiritual way. So it doesn't matter whether it's sophisticated or direct. The point is it's in violation of samanya dharma. All right. So Arjuna, upon his grandsire and his teacher, who were very dear to him, he loved his teacher and his grandsire, which you can understand so, understandably, if you love someone. What's going to happen? If you're seeing your family on the other side, how are you going to respond? And you got to kill them. You see the problem? Yeah. So what's that going to do? It's going to cause a lot of emotional problems, right? Why? Well, we're going to find out why. Attachment. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Michael, there's three sheets over there, and I want that to be group 1, I want that to be group 2, and this to be group 3. And I'm going to directly do an exercise with you guys, and we will see how Arjuna is not just some person who is sort of on the field and this is completely unrelated to life. We will see how and what happens when there is, as you said, attachment involved. So this is what I want you to do. Imagine, before we say that, what's going to happen is the group's going to have a conversation together. It's a nice time to get to know each other, introduce yourselves. You're going to get together and you're going to imagine that you are a parent. Okay, you have a son or a daughter. And you receive a call from the school, and they say that a child has fallen from the 3rd floor of the school. Now, what I want you to do is discuss how you would react if you think it is your child. Just imagine that. If it was your child and you heard the news, your child, your son, your daughter has fallen from the 3rd floor of the school, and you hear this news, how would you react? And then what the second stage is, after you've gone through that discussion, imagine that you suddenly find out that indeed it is not your child, it is somebody else's child. And then I want you to pay close attention to your own feelings, how you would respond, what would happen in your psychology, to your body, physically, emotionally, mentally. What would you do in such a situation? So get together now. Someone's going to be the spokesperson. So I'm going to ask after the 5 minutes is over. And the spokesperson is going to share with me what conclusions you have come to. Okay? So get together now, hello to each other, and start to discuss this question. 5 minutes. And come up and write down whatever you come up with. So we're just going to have a spokesperson, and see, the whole purpose of this is just to get back down to earth and see that Bhagavad Gita has got nothing to do with some high, some up there airy-fairy teaching. It's just very down to earth, how to live a life as a good human being, how to serve, and how to also know one's true nature. So that's all we're doing here. So let's start with that group over there, the spokesperson. Please tell us, what have you concluded based on the question of how would you feel if it was your child or somebody else's child?
If it was our child, there'd just be a lot of panic, there'd be shock, we'd be desperate to find more details, we'd be asking questions, there'd be like a disbelief. You'd just go really crazy and have saying shallow breathing, thinking too much. There's just like a desperation. Yeah.
Okay. So we're speaking physical symptoms here.
Yeah.
Breathing. Okay. And what about if it was another child?
Would still feel sad and concerned, but you'd feel somewhat relieved, I guess. If it was another child.
Good word. See that? Relieved.
You'd still want to find out what happened, if they're okay, but yeah, it wouldn't have that same desperation and as if it was your own child.
Okay. Yeah, good points. Okay. What did you get?
I guess, well, me being the only parent and my son being with us too, kind of was a little bit different. So I think everybody pretty much agreed, pretty much the same, that if it was somebody, if it was your child, well, we didn't really discuss, but I'm sure we'd all feel grief from that. But on the other hand, if we found out it was somebody else's child, you would be relieved.
Yeah.
And I said I would probably feel guilty, even though I'm relieved it's not my child, but I would feel guilty, or perhaps, not so much guilty, perhaps that's not the right word, but bad for that other person because they're going through. So we all agreed we'd probably rally together and try to, help them, or most of us did anyway.
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
So,
Good.
yeah.
I get your points. Okay. What do we get? Spokesperson.
Yeah, we got a bit forensic with the question because it didn't actually say that we got a call that our child or a child had been. So we worked through that a bit. And individually, I think I came up with the idea that I would immediately fly to guilt if I thought it was my child. I'd done something wrong dharmically. That's all right. That's where I went. That's where I went. That's how I live my life.
Fair enough.
Careful. Later, if we found out it was someone else's child, there'd be relief and so forth. But Martin had a different response, and that was a practical one as to what could be done in the circumstance. Quite rational and addressing the practicalities of the situation.
That's my training now, so I tend to go back.
He's a trained child saver.
No. I got a license for high risk work, and so
License.
no, I have work at this. So I've just literally, you make a space, you look for clarity, look for wrong information to dispel it, and then decide who's the one to make the decision. Because you can't have two captains of the ship. Now, in this particular circumstances, I would have immediately, if I just made the worst case scenario assumption that it was my kid and I was the one responsible for making the decision, I would have to drop everything and get there.
Okay.
And first of all, verify the information that I'd already taken in was correct.
Okay.
So it was my child, and it did need a decision beyond what was capable of on the scene.
Okay. Definitely forensic. Okay, so what have we learned is, it seems, at least the way I'm hearing it, is that the first example, if it's my child, there's a sense of subjectivity. That means we make it it's my own thing. There's a sense of, it becomes about me as a parent. That means as a parent, starts to become contracted. The emotions start to arise and it starts to increase, and then the worst case scenario starts to project, and it creates a huge picture as to what are the connotations of this, where's the future going to go, and how did it happen. And then all of these emotions, a surge of emotions start to arise, and they cover the buddhi, they cover the intellect, which is responsible and needed in order to think straight. And we all know from experience that when a situation like this arises, we are unable to think straight. Why? Because the surge of emotions start to slowly arise, and then the mind starts to get very erratic. A very short time it lasts on one thought. We're unable to keep our thoughts in one place in order to evaluate, to analyze, to judge, to discern as to what could this mean. By the time we look at it, there's another thought that starts to come up, and then the body starts to contract. There's a sense of heat, a sense of cold. And then maybe there's some physical ailments like the stomach starts to get contracted, and then the throat gets dry, and then the lips get dry. And then the more all of these physical symptoms show up, they reinforce the fact that we are indeed nervous. So then that causes us to look at ourselves, and then even more we cannot do something, because now not only are we looking at ourselves crumbling down, but also our minds is emotionally attached to our child, so we're unable to act intelligently, rationally, and think straight. Thus, we are debilitated, and our perception is now gone off rail. Subjectivity. Whereas, when we discover that it is somebody else's child, two common words I heard: relief. Instantly, that relief just surges. It just falls away. The emotions fall away, which means what? And also I heard solution mode, right? When it's somebody else's child, we're able to think straight. What can I do? What can I help? What's the best way to handle this? If I can help, then what can I do? But this thinking is absent in subjectivity. Subjectivity versus objectivity, these two primary modes is what we need to be aware of. Because if the emotions come, then this is what happens. And this is exactly what happened to Arjuna, which is now you know why we have 18 chapters of the entire Bhagavad Gita, or at least 17 that follow the first chapter. Because Krishna was attempting to help Arjuna how to come out of this grief, how to come out of this sense of inner turmoil, inner contraction, inner emotional confusion. You see now why we go through karma yoga? Because karma yoga, what did Krishna first do after the first chapter? He told him about the whole, everything. He told him about this entire model of the world. And did Arjuna get it? No. Why? Because Arjuna is still emotionally driven and emotionally dominated. And then we prescribe karma yoga. What does that mean? To discharge the results of your actions to Ishvara, knowing that none of this is mine. Therefore, there is no... You see what happens when you discharge to Ishvara? You're discharging attachment. And what does attachment do? You just experienced it yourself. It causes the intellect to be covered. So that means when we discharge... Now, just imagine hundreds of things in our lives that we have attachments for. What kind of a mind is that? That's a mind that is operating extremely emotionally, let's just say. So it's unable to think straight. So that's why the importance of discovering what Ishwara is, which we will get into, in order to be able to detach naturally. This is not fake detachment. We're not talking about denial or, it's just my child, it's okay, it's just 5 elements, it's made out of subatomic particles, the whole thing's just a dream anyway, it's time and space, this from the whole eternity, this is nothing. We're not trying to be fake here. Just simply understand how Ishwara operates, and through that understanding, we're able to naturally and gradually detach from circumstances which cloud our intellect. Why should we do this? Because the mind, which is emotionally driven, cannot discriminate between satya and mithya, which is impeccably important. It's crucial in order to discover the nature of the self and know that I am that unchanging reality. So that means all of these tools are there to help us in order to recognize what is already present right now. Awareness, which is never not present. Now, it's easy to say that, but a mind that is covered with emotions cannot comprehend that. It's just intellectual. Yeah. So there is this work at the beginning before we go into the high teachings, which we'll get to at the end of this session. Okay. Now,
Gut feeling. Gut feeling, is it?
That feeling? I'm not getting the question.
Gut.
Gut feeling.
Okay, are we talking about intuition?
Stomach feeling, gut.
Intuition.
Okay, good question. Where does intuition happen? Is the mind changing or unchanging? The mind is changing. Now, in order for you to intuit about something, because and this is a common question, what about intuition? In order for you to intuit about something, do you have to have historical track record of that which you intuit about? You do. Because if you have no previous experience, how can you have an intuition about something that you're trying to figure out? That means intuition still depends on your past. We call this inference. That means you can only infer based on the present and taking the past and making an assessment based on what I have in the present and taking the past, what has happened before, bringing them together and then using the intellect to discern as to what is the most likely outcome happening right now. And we call that intuition. So that's why intuition is 50-50. It's not always accurate and sometimes it's accurate because it still depends on inference and perception. In order for you to intuit about something, you first need what? Perception. You need to perceive something that you are intuiting about. And once you perceive, what does it do? What does the perceiving? The mind. And once it's in the mind, it goes where? To the intellect, and the intellect borrows from chitta, the memory, and then the memory provides to the intellect, and that is now colored by your vasanas tendencies. So that means if I've intuited about this, let's say X, before, then it's most likely I'm going to intuit about this the same. Why? Because the vasanas are causing me to intuit in the same way as I've done before. So that means there's so many variables intuiting which can skew the result.
It's an interesting word, even intuition. Intuition meaning in teaching, and you're in teaching. So in other words, something's happening, you're learning.
Yeah. Okay, are we so
Andre, is there such a thing as, say, perfect intuition when your intellect is not covered? That you actually have...
Yeah, but we're not talking about intuition. See, a wise person doesn't use intuition. A wise person is surrendered to Ishvara. That means there is no need to use the mind in order to find out or discover what to do next. What's the next course of action? There is a surrender to the moment, whichever way that leads, so be it. But there is no attachment for the moment. Therefore, for a wise person, there is no such thing as imperfect moment. Because that's just where I was led. Yeah, because it's all Ishwara anyway. So how can I call imperfect being with one person and perfect being with another person when both people are just Ishwara? Just a permutation, combination of the 5 elements put together, which we call a jiva, put together by what? All knowledge, all power. So intuition does work, but 50-50, because it still depends on a changing vikara, that is modification, changing principle. Okay, the other thing that we have to know is, before we do another exercise, is I want to introduce something called misplaced thinking. This is where what happened in the Kurukshetra field is Arjuna, in order to get out of his or justify his emotions, what do we usually do to justify? Well, what do we do to make ourselves feel good? We justify. We say something, we create a story in order to make right what we actually should be doing, but we're not. So we create a story in order to make it okay that the fact that I'm not acting is okay. That's exactly what Arjuna did. So when Arjuna finally saw his 2 teachers, who he loves dearly, he dropped his bow and arrow, and he sat down and he started telling Krishna why it is not right to fight, and why fighting war causes destruction of families, destruction of good, able, working men, and why when there's an absence of good, working, able men, then their wives and kids won't have a father. They won't have someone to protect them, which then further escalates into the mom not being protected, and thus the cultural values in the family not having someone to uphold those values, which then causes the wife or the woman to be suspect to being abused. which then causes the woman further to engage in licentious ways, which then causes the child of the family to look at the role model, which is the mom, because she's the only one remaining now, and lose what is right, lose a sense of direction, what is right and what is wrong, because there's no one to hold that dharma, the father is gone. And then the child, now not having anyone to model off cultural values, makes another child, and that child now models of this child who themselves has lost cultural values. So you can see how the generation starts going down, all because of war. Now, you say this is a very good argument, right? It's true. Yeah. But why is this called a misplaced thought? Because both Pandavas were preparing for the war for 13 years, and the Kauravas were preparing for the entire life. They knew this is going to happen one day. And finally, at the moment of battle, when they finally joined together, there is what's called last-minute resistance. You think about it. Suddenly the consequence of the event starts to show up. It starts to become clear what's about to happen. And then we what? We retract. What you just experienced with the child, that's what happens. So Arjuna starts to explain all of these reasons, but is it appropriate when it's wartime? That's called a misplaced thought. That means you don't shoot when there is a peace treaty going on. Neither do you talk dharma when there is a war about to happen. This is called misplaced thought, and it happens very often. We use these good reasons to justify ourselves as to why the position that we're in is okay, when in fact it's just there to cover up what I should be doing, which is called swadharma or vishesha dharma. That is, swadharma meaning if I am supposed to take care of the whole, because the only ones who are going to take care of the whole was the Pandavas. If the Pandavas run away, who's going to take care of the whole, the society? Because the Kauravas have been getting their way since the beginning. In other words, the destruction in the society is going to degrade if there's no one there to protect it. Which is why, yes, Arjuna was right with his reasons, but the timing was completely inappropriate. That kind of talk would be good with a son or a father, at home. But at wartime, no. That means when we need to perform our duties, we perform our duties without this misplaced thoughts as to what? Get out of our duties, because the only way to move forward is by performing our duties. So that's what Arjuna had to do. But he couldn't. So Krishna was listening to him and said, yeah, these are all valid reasons. This is something you have in your own experience. When someone's doing something evil in society, like teenagers, even though, and mothers will know this, and fathers will also know this, when you tell your child, or somebody else's child, or even your child, why what they did was adharmic, himsa, injury, what do they usually do? Yeah, they give you good reasons. They actually very good intellectual, rational reasons why what they're doing is completely fine. Isn't that your experience? Yeah. So Arjuna is doing the same thing. He's giving really, it's like, wow, this is like you can write a book out of this dharma, this advice that he gave in chapter 1. But the timing is off. So that means that in context with the environment that is demanding your presence, you can be good, but in the context of what is demanding, that good is no longer good. It's no longer appropriate. You see the difference? So there's no difference between good or bad. It's only the context makes it so. That means what is appropriate in one situation becomes inappropriate in another situation. Example, let's say there's a funeral going on. And Arjuna, actually let's say you're walking and you see you don't know it's a funeral, right? So you see everyone's head coming down because they're kind of they're giving respect to the person for 5 minutes in silence. And you're kind of like a happy, joyful person. And you're like, oh my God, why is everyone so sad? You don't know what's going on. So you decide to take your stereo system and put it right in front, in the middle, in the center, and start turn on the stereo system and start dancing, to cheer them up, right? So what you're doing is good, but it's inappropriate. So that means it has its time and place. That's the point. Misplaced thoughts or misplaced actions. There's a time and place for everything. Okay. Then what Krishna did was provided Arjuna, which is the result of 17 succeeding chapters, with what's called holistic vision. What is holistic vision? Just imagine that you and I go to a art club, like a museum, and I say, just stand there, just wait. And I go behind you, and I suddenly put a huge, big picture in front of you, this close. It's the greatest masterpiece that would usually take people's breath away. I put it this close. And I say, what do you see? You say, get this out of my face. So what do I have to do? I have to keep showing you the image from different angles, from different ways, in order for you to fully appreciate what I'm trying to show you. That means the Gita, in a similar way, we're talking about the same thing almost every week, but it's coming from so many different facets, from different angles, in order to comprehend what it really means to say Sarvam Brahmaha, everything is Brahman, and I am not separate from that Brahman. So holistic vision is seeing the same basic foundation from different angles, and that's what causes this slow, gradual assimilation and understanding of this supreme, we can call it a supreme reality, which you already are, Satyam. Okay.
So in a sense, living alone in Ishvara, you're being faced with facts all the time.
You're being faced with?
With facts that you need to adjust your behaviour to.
That's right.
So I've heard it described as being alive to facts.
Alive to what is.
To what is, yeah. And is that essentially karma yoga?
Alive to what is, first of all, requires you to have prior knowledge of Ishwara. Because if, let's say, a child, see, it looks like a child is alive to what is, but is that the case? No. A child is alive to their own imagination, superimposed over what we call Vyavaharika or Ishwara Srishti. So it's Jiva Srishti, my own projection, superimposed over empirical reality called Ishwara Srishti, and then I am alive to my own reality. In other words, I am living in a world of my own projection, and I believe the world which I'm living in is the world, but it's actually my projection. So being alive to what is, we need to know the difference and very clear establishment between these three realities. Jiva Srishti, your own projection; Ishwara Srishti, the empirical reality, that is the transactional reality; and the last reality, which is Paramartika, which is the unchanging reality. Otherwise, the mind gets totally confused. It's like projecting onto the world, and then the world is in a such and such condition, but it's my condition, it's not the world's condition.
I think the other point there with regards to the facts, it's too easy to get hold of a fact and think it's something permanent and then hold on to that at the expense of what's happening in the moment, and then you end up with the wrong. You don't get to provide to the society in the right time, in the right place, because my projections are busy wallpapering the world with what I would have it be instead of what it actually is. So in other words, if this is operating, then I actually do the world a disfavor, but also to myself, because I don't get the right timing, in order to act instantly and appropriately.
Even a fact can't be a fact for someone else. A fact for me, if something is a fact, might not be a fact for another person.
That's right. So it's relative.
It's how we see us and how we believe, what we put into that.
Yeah. So see, in Vedanta, we need to be very careful, because by the time you come to Vedanta, you should have already, not all of it, but taken care of, or at least aware of Jiva Srishti. That our projections is the very obstacle which prevents us from seeing or appreciating not only God, Ishwara, but especially ourselves, which is the unchanging. So the primary key in this is firstly taking care of Jiva Srishti, our own projections. Then we can appreciate what is. And it doesn't stop there, because you can keep appreciating what is for lifetimes. You know, you need to know the unchanging reality. So we cover all three.
So do we get affected by media like TV? You know what's shown on
Yeah.
TV of the whole world?
Yeah, because
the
everything.
news of the world,
Yeah, of course. Because every time you hear about the media of the world, not only is it reinforcing the likes and dislikes, which is causing me to unconsciously project next time, whether I know it or not. So it's an unsuspecting projection. Yeah. So that means there's a certain lifestyle change that has to start happening. Firstly, by removing yourself from those circumstances which fill the mind with unnecessary words and unnecessary language, unnecessary images. Because you also got to understand that anything that you see on the media is their own misapprehension of reality. That's why when someone's speaking about what's happening, let's say, a different country, Pakistan or Afghanistan, or whatever it is, they usually say, they usually say an opinion about it. But is that opinion absolutely true? No. It's relative to some other fact they've gained, and that person who wrote the fact for them also researched based on a very limited point of view. So we're living in a relative world, and we need to be careful not to fall into this jiva projecting srishti. Srishti means creation. Yeah, that's the basics of Vedanta.
It could be true, you know.
Hey?
It could be true, you know.
Okay, the next thing I want us to do is, now that we've talked about holistic vision and the importance of holistic vision, is same group, discuss what happens to you physically when you get anxious before a major event, just like Arjuna got anxious before the final moment of fulfilling his swadharma, fulfilling his duty in order to move forward in life, or get upset after a disturbing event. This is going to help us reveal some information how we get suppressed, how our ability gets hindered when certain emotions are operating. Yeah. So what's the common denominator here that we hear? A common experience.
Tension.
Yeah, it's debilitating. That means that it suppresses our basic faculties to operate and function in the world properly. So now just imagine, see, this is normal, first of all. We're not saying you're not supposed to feel this, because a human being is going through a certain experience, and we all have vasanas, we all have tendencies, and we will all respond in a certain way. But we have to be careful, though, because if we don't have the right knowledge of Ishvara, that everything here is indeed Sarvam Brahmaha, then what happens is, right from the beginning that we did, everything becomes extremely subjective. And the lack of knowledge only intensifies and justifies our feeling for feeling debilitated and hindered from making a proper, clear decision. Because in both examples, I hear, there's just one common denominator, which is what exactly Arjuna has been going through, and that is a feeling of disempowerment. Yeah. Okay, so I want to tell you a story, and I want us to use this story as an example. What happens when we don't have the scriptures in our life? What happens when we are constantly consumed in the worldly events, which is nothing wrong with that, but just want to show you what happens, nevertheless, when there is a disinterest or a general, you don't necessarily value what it means to be immersed in Shruti, in Smriti, in Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita, not having some kind of a regular education. Okay, the story goes like this. Once upon a time, there lived a great king who had a secret mantra. And this mantra, if it was chanted by anyone, if they could get this mantra from him, would manifest a genie who would give any wish to his or her master. So a poor man from the village hears about this king, and he decides to approach him because he's just got so many desires. He's got so many wishes and so many anxieties he wants to remove, and so many worldly attainments and so many pursuits that he wishes to accomplish. So he's got to see this king. He says, "Hey, look, I heard you got a secret mantra. I mean, I've got a lot of desires and I really need this genie to help me out here. And the king says, no, sorry, you're not ready for this. Go away. And he was kind of depressed. He went back. And of course, his desires are still hunting him. You know, they're grabbing him. They want him to fulfill these desires. So he just can't hold it. He has to go back to the king the second time and say, hey, look, I mean, you know, I know you said no to me first time, but my condition's special. I really got many desires to fulfill, and I need this genie. No. Trust me, you don't want this genie. This genie is you're not ready for this. So he walks back second time, very disappointed. It's always on the third time, isn't it? When the person comes back and the farmer says to him, hey, look, I mean, I know you rejected me twice, but I'm not going to leave you alone. I really need this genie. And the king gives up, says, oh, okay. You know, if you, I warned you, you're not ready for this. And the farmer says, at least I'll be careful. Believe me, I can handle it. I've got so many desires, it's no problem for me. So he finally gets the secret mantra from the king. And the farmer walks back and he's looking now for a quiet place to invoke the mantra. And he invokes the mantra and comes out a huge, powerful, great, big, blue, just divine genie that you just like totally drop down to your knees and go, wow, genie. And the genie, his first words are, yes, your master, your every wish is at my command. Every wish? Yes, every wish. Really? I can just keep on asking? Yes, I will fulfill your every desire. And the genie says, but I must warn you, this is a small fine print. I have a craving for human flesh, which means that if you don't keep me busy fulfilling your desires, I'm going to eat you. And it's not going to be fast, it's going to be very slow, limb by limb. And the farmer's like, that's no problem for me. I've got too many desires to fulfill. I'll be keeping you busy forever. And they finally agree. So the genie says, so what is your first wish? And the farmer says, well, you see that place over there on the hill? I want the best castle. I want a king's castle on the top. The genie's like, no problem, I can do that for you. So the genie, goes up to the mountain and gets busy while the farmer continues grazing and doing what he does. And 30 minutes later, the genie comes back and says, yes, what else can I do for you? He's like, well, wait a minute, aren't you building the house? The genie says, I've already done it. And this guy's like surprised, wow, that was fast. So he gets about 2 hours worth to see and enjoy his house, the farmer, until the genie gets really hungry, starts looking at him, she wants to eat him, right? So he realizes, oh, I better give this guy another desire before he eats me. And then, but he's no problem, he's got too many desires, so he gives him another desire. And once again, the genie is very good at what he does. He fulfills his desire instantly. He comes back to him. Says, yes, your master, I would like another desire to fulfill. And this goes on for so long until the guy starts to go, oh my God, this guy's too good. I'm going to run out of desires. And if I run out of desires, he's going to eat me. So he goes back to the king and says, hey, this genie, he's really good at what he does. Is there like a mantra to slow him down? And says, no, I mean, I'm not interested. You asked for there's nothing more I can do for you. It is your genie. So the man goes back. Remember, he's got all his desires fulfilled now. And he's now got to start creating more desires, just gratuitous, materialistic, all sorts of desires just to keep this desire genie from not eating him up. So now it's no longer about his genuine desire. Now he starts to fantasize about things just to keep his Mr. or Mrs. Desire Rajas busy. Rajas, the desire, the wanter. And he just gets very concerned. So he has to go back to the king the second time and says, look, I mean, I need help. I can't keep, I don't know what to say anymore. I've run out of my desires. I had all of my desires fulfilled. I recognize the limits of my desires. I really need help to stop this genie desire from calling me to express more desires. And finally the king, in hesitation, of course, says, all right, fine. And he tells him something on his ear. So the farmer goes back, and he, of course, the genie is ready for a new desire and also ready to eat him because he's, finished all his fulfillments. And he says to the genie, yeah, so what I want you to do is, I want you to build a 100-meter pole, vertical pole, and I want you to climb up on the pole, and when you climb up on the pole, then I want you to climb down. And when you climb down, climb back up. Keep doing this until I tell you to stop. So the genie makes a pole and starts sliding up and down the pole forever. Now, there are so many morals in this story. But I think you already got one of them just by listening to them. One of the morals of this story is, as I said, the Bhagavad Gita, whenever we teach you something that implies a high teaching, a teaching of, let's say, Ishvara, or the self, or existence, or awareness. Whenever we teach you something that's very high, you could quote, high in its nature, we need to take that teaching and bring it back down to earth and apply it. And when we apply it, then we need to receive another teaching, holistic vision, and bring that back down to earth. That is how this journey is to be, by receiving the teaching, but never losing track that ultimately you're just a human being, a jiva, who is living amongst other jivas who are non-separate from Ishwara, and the truth of Ishwara is Sat Chit Ananda, consciousness, existence, awareness. So that means that we need to also keep our minds busy with this pole, whose little inscription on it is made by the company called Scriptures. So what does this mean? You need to keep your mind in this world busy with this teaching. This is not about a one-time attendance and then thinking this is it. This is, I don't have to come again and my job is done here. We need to keep our minds busy because the world is always presenting us with these genies, which we, in very sophisticated ways, start to misuse, and then we fall back for this worldly pursuit. Unsuspecting, it happens so silently and unsophisticated. So keep your mind constantly immersed in the scriptures, because one session a week is not enough. I promise you that. You need to have some backup at your own place, at your own time, in order to attend, read a verse, an Upanishads, a program or something, to keep your mind totally immersed in this vision of Sarvam Brahmaha. Everything is the whole. The pole, genie coming up and down, is your mind. You need to keep that mind either busy with the world or busy with your discovering your true nature. It's all up to you. That's the prerogative, that's the privilege of a human being. We can redirect our efforts into something that implies goodness, implies dharma, implies discovery of ourselves, of Ishwara.
So instead of sort of subscribing to the Buddhist view of desires being something that you should dispense with and give up altogether, you're actually transforming desires which are ultimately destructive, transforming them into that, into a pure desire,
to a higher ideal, to a higher ideal. That's why we need to be educated, because if we're not educated, the desires are always operating. You're never going to get rid of that. You need to have a higher ideal immediately available next to you or close to you to resort to, because by the time the mind starts sliding up and down the worldly pole, it's very hard to get that genie off, because it's very enjoyable to do that. So that means we need that immediacy in our presence. All right. Now we're going to get back to chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sannyasa Yoga, yoga of a true sannyasi. And we have now taken a detour before this into setting up the context of the Bhagavad Gita. And we've established the fact that the Gita isn't just some story that has no relevance to our lives. Arjuna, in a way, is all of us. We're all attached to one thing or another. And we've also discovered how attachment blocks the intellect from fully working. So this isn't just about, we're not saying, you're not supposed to feel anything. We just say we need to know the full extent, holistic vision, in order for this emotion doesn't constantly drive our life. That means, as I keep saying, we need clear intellect. Because the intellect is where Atman is known. Right now, Brahman is reflected where? In the intellect. That means if the intellect is covered with Rajas or Tamas, then even though Atman or Brahman is shining onto the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, or you could call it the Antahakarana, we just call it the subtle body, there's different names for it. Even though the Brahman is always shining onto the intellect, it is always available, but it doesn't seem like in our experience. Why? Because the intellect is still not completely purified. Therefore, one says, I hear this, I hear what you're saying, I am the unchanging reality, but I just don't fully assimilate, I don't fully comprehend the full implications, the full extent of what that actually means. So how do we purify the intellect, the mind? We've got Karma Yoga, which we discussed, and now we're on to chapter 5, Sannyasa Yoga. A sannyasa is one who has already gone through the stage of purification. So now we're talking about that one whose mind is already purified, which is why chapter 5 is a little bit of a higher teaching, because we've already gone through the chapter 3, which is how to be in the world in order to purify your mind through Karma Yoga. If you haven't seen that, then just go and see the videos. It's all there. Okay. The self is not the doer. I'm going to revise this. Okay, what is the self? Self is awareness, consciousness, Brahman, or you could say also Atman, Satchitananda, existence. These are all synonymous words that I'll be interchanging. That one is not the doer. What does this mean? Okay. So I'll make a statement and then we'll build up from the statement. The real doer is all knowledge, all power, which we call Ishvara. Sarvam jnanam, sarvam, you know what sarvam means already. All jnanam, all knowledge, sarvam shakti, all power. All knowledge, all power. So now we have to dig into why is this the case? Because just saying I am not the doer, we have to know who the I is and who is actually the doer. Okay, so we're going to look at that in detail now. Okay. This has been staring us for a while. Maya. You see that? What is Maya? Maya is, look at Maya as an inherent Shakti. What does inherent Shakti mean? Inherent power. Inherent power in what? Inherent power in Brahman, in consciousness. How do we prove this? Because right now it's just a statement. Think of Maya like this. Right now, everyone here has a power to dream. But that power is not manifest. No one's dreaming right now. At least not in reference to sleeping. Right? So right now, there is a power in all of us called, metaphorically, look at don't look at the direct meaning. Hear the implied meaning. Implied meaning is the analogy. Right now, we all have a power called Maya, which is Jnanam Shakti, or Sarvam Jnanam and Sarvam Shakti, all knowledge, all power. and it is inherent right now, but it's not expressed. When we go to sleep, follow the logic here. When you go to sleep tonight, that power, which in unmanifest form remains as, or the name we give it called Maya, when that power is operating and creates a world, which is called the dream world, that world is now called Jagat. Jagat means the scheme of things. What does scheme of things mean? It means that, what does the word scheme mean? It means a certain plan, a certain combination, a certain paradigm. So in Jagat, we're still in a dream right now, okay? In Jagat, we have scheme within scheme. What does this mean? Right now, we have a scheme called a human being within a scheme called the environment. We have a scheme called a human blood cell within a scheme called an organ. The scheme called an organ is within a scheme called a body. The body scheme is within the scheme of the suburb. The suburb is a scheme within the nation. The nation is a scheme within the continent. The continent is a scheme within the world. The world is a scheme within the solar system. The solar system is a scheme within the galaxy. This galaxy is a scheme within however macrocosmic you want to go, or microcosmic, all the way down to quarks. It doesn't matter. It is a scheme within a scheme. What does this mean? Your experience, which no one can deny, is every scheme in itself. Let's just say your liver. So right now your liver is a scheme. Is an intelligent creation. Does anyone here know how to create a liver? So what does this mean? It means that this liver is intelligently put together through permutations and combinations of 5 elements by some intelligence, because of which the liver is able to function and have a function of its own that not only functions by itself, but also is able to provide function for other organs. So we have a scheme called liver, a scheme called a spleen, a heart, a brain, and all of these schemes intelligently put together of themselves have a function and purpose which support each other to create a bigger scheme, a more macrocosmic scheme called a human body. Think about this scheme. We're still in a dream world right now, remember? Think about a scheme of the moon. The moon itself not only supports or is a creation of its own through rocks and through certain, the way it's positioned, but also the scheme called moon serves a function for a scheme called the earth. Think about our high and low tides. Without the moon, there will just be the fish, and at least the surface couldn't surf anymore without the moon. So in other words, every scheme in itself is intelligently structured, put together, which serves not only a function of itself, but also serves a function for another scheme. So there is not a single thing, object in this universe that you can find which does not play a role of itself. Which is why we do not say, oh, I am the witness. You heard of that before in the spiritual world? I am just the witness. What do you deny if you just say, I am just the witness? Mithya. It doesn't work like that. We need to address Satya and Mithya, else it becomes a dualistic statement to just say, I am the witness. If you were just the witness, all you would need is just your head, your eyes, and your ears. But why are you given arms, legs? Because anything that is created in this Jagat by the power called Ishwara, which is when it's manifesting, we call it Ishwara. When it's unmanifest, we call it Maya. But now that this power, which is manifesting, called Ishwara, manifests this Jagat, this world, then in this world we have a scheme of things, which is why we say Jagat is the scheme of things. So what does this mean? This means that without Maya, there is no Ishwara. Think about this. Without Maya, there is no what we call creator, what we call God. Without your inherent power that you have right now, without that power, you're unable to dream. You're unable to create a huge, beautifully structured world called Jagat, which in itself has what? Characters, other people, waterfalls, people are having conversations with each other, they're fighting, they're celebrating, they're going to Bali, they're going to Hawaii, they're going to America. They're doing so many things in this Jagat, in this world. All of them are a scheme within a scheme, and yet they all belong to whom? That one single source, in this case, the dreamer. Similarly, this entire world that we see called Jagat, scheme of things, which involves intelligent permutations or combinations put together, is all belonging to that all knowledge and all power, which when it's operating we call Ishwara, when it's not operating we call that Maya, which means that there is actually no difference between Ishwara and Maya. Because in some Upanishads even, they interchange between Maya and Ishwara. Ultimately, there is no difference because for simplicity reasons, we just say Maya is that power which you have right now. When it's not expressed, there is no world. There is no dream. When that power, which is in Brahman, is expressed, then we have what we call this entire world, scheme of things. And you as a person are just one scheme of infinite schemes in this entire universe. An universe created, put together intelligently by the five elements, by this all knowledge and all power. So here's a question. Out of what is your dream made of?
Fragments of imagination, things that you've seen, things
Yeah.
that you've experienced.
Good. And where does the knowledge in your dream come from? Because the dream has structure to it. There's tree knowledge, there's sun knowledge, there's cloud knowledge, there's people knowledge. Where does knowledge come from? Okay. So both the knowledge and the material, that's what a dream consists of, the material, because you're seeing things, and the knowledge as to how that material is to be structured is what? Knowledge. Because you can't have a house without knowledge, can you? You can't have a sun unless there is a principle of what the sun does. What is the function of the sun? That's why we say all knowledge and all power. So when all knowledge and all power are operating, they belong to that one same dreamer you. Which means without you, there is no dream. Without Brahman, there is no world. So is the dream separate from you?
No.
Yes and no. It's a tricky one.
It's a different state.
Okay, is the dream different from you?
Yes.
Okay, how do we explain this? Imagine the sun and the moon. The sun is the original consciousness. The sunlight is being shone onto the moon. So now what is the difference between the sunlight and the moonlight?
Reflection.
Okay. Is the moonlight different from the sunlight? Yes, but also no. Because the essence of the moonlight is the same essence of the sunlight. But the moonlight is not the full power of the sunlight. So yes and no. Similarly, your dream, yes, it is you, but at the same time, it is not you. That's the paradox that we have to solve. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to move us forward and say, okay, let's summarize. What is the difference between Ishwara and Maya? The difference between Ishwara and Maya is, as we said, Maya is when this all knowledge and all power is inherent, but it's not operating.
Potential.
It's a potential, yeah. When this potential, this all knowledge and all power is manifest, we then assign a new name to it called Ishvara. Is that clear? Okay, so that means Ishvara and Maya are not separate. They're actually one and the same. We just assign a different label to help us understand and comprehend this universe. Yeah. So the other thing that we have to understand is there is actually no such thing as Maya, no Ishvara, because that's another dualistic thought. So in other words, we create these words in order to make sense of what we cannot understand through inference nor perception. See, you have to start seeing everything as one, everything as the same, everything as consciousness. But because the mind is still trying to figure things out, we then assign and we call it satya mithya. Ultimately, there's no such thing as consciousness and or self and not self. It's just self, there's just you. Okay. This self and not self, we will slowly start to cancel out as the course progresses, because I don't want us to stay in this dualistic thought that now it's all satya and I am satya and the world is just mithya, mithya, mithya. Just keep denying mithya, everything's changing, not me. It doesn't work like that. Just like, as I said before, you cannot say, I am just the witness. You're not just the witness. There's a person there. And what do we say about the jumper and the wall at the beginning? The wall is never separate from the jumper. That means when you understand these two realities, satya and mithya, even if you call yourself a person, it doesn't matter. Because the truth of the person, jiva, and the truth of the Ishvara is the same truth called Brahman. Just like the truth of the wave and the truth of the ocean is what? H2O. Without H2O, there is no ocean. Without H2O, there is no wave. So the commonality that both the wave, you're just one of the waves, in the entire ocean called Ishwara, that they both share or they both enjoy, is they both enjoy that one reality, H2O. And wherever there is H2O, or wherever there is a wave, that's exactly where there is H2O. Which means that you cannot ever get out of Ishvara. You cannot ever get out of yourself. This is all there is to it. Because wherever there is a wave, you're just one wave, that's exactly where there's H2O. So once again, it comes back to a simple understanding that there is nothing out there in the future, which we briefly covered last week, because whatever you are looking for, whatever it is that, whatever truth we're seeking is already here now. Because everything is H2O. There is nothing but H2O. It's like the wave that tries to figure out the ocean. What is the wave going to try to figure out the ocean of? Or try to figure out the ocean with? It's thoughts. But what is thoughts pervaded by? H2O. What is the ocean? What is the wave? Wave means jiva. What is the wave going to try to feel Ishvara with? Its ability. But its entire ability is also H2O. It can never get out of what it already is. So it's just an understanding and accepting that what I already am, what the truth is, I already am right now.
Sometimes see the lens in your own.
Yeah. All right, let's finish this off. Okay, so what is Ishvara? We're going to cover this a little bit more now. What we need to know about Ishvara is attributeless. See, when we look at the world, we think, oh, okay, well, Ishvara is all this. No, that's incorrect thinking to say Ishvara is all this. Ishvara, as you said, Martin, is all knowledge, all power in potential. When that all knowledge and all power potential is expressed constantly in manifest and unmanifest, which is what you're witnessing right now, we call that Jagat. So that means Ishvara, just like Brahman, is completely attributeless. It has no properties of itself. Because how can you give a property to God which hasn't yet manifested? See, how can you give a property to potential which is yet to be fructified? There's nothing to say about it, is there? because it hasn't yet fructified. So what you're experiencing right now is all knowledge and all power constantly coming in manifest and out of manifest, and there is no ending to this. In fact, there is no such thing as manifest, because by the time I say something is manifest, by the time I say the word t from manifest, t, that object has already changed into something else. So you can never grasp anything, because by the time you try to grasp it, it's already changed, it's nature. Just like right now, you cannot actually be present in the now. Why? Because by the time this word reaches your ear, it takes 1,000 or so kilometers per second. So you're actually not witnessing me right now, and this light to bounce off this body is going to travel at 300,000 kilometers per second to reach your eyeballs. So what you're looking at right now is not the present, you're looking at the past. It's a very small delay, but you're still looking at the past. So similarly, see, we have to start understanding how this reality operates, so we don't get sort of, all fat, like, oh, just be in the now. Okay, that's fine, you can say that. But ultimately, are you really ever being in the now? Right? So it's something to, it's one of those things to think about. Because it's an order of Ishvara. Time, space, 5 elements, gravity, psychology, physiology, biology, chemistry, electromagnetism, all of these are orders of Ishvara. And these orders, as I said, are all operating independently. So the question now is, if they're all operating independently, are you really doing anything here? Because it's a constant cause-effect relationship between one order and another order. The bird chirps, another bird responds. You go to a party and there's loud music, and you cannot help yourself but to dance in a certain way according to that loud music, because it's triggering a certain impulse to dance in a certain way. And then you say, oh, I'm dancing. But as soon as you change the music, the entire demeanor changes. And then you say, oh, I am the doer, I am the one who's dancing. Are you really dancing? Or is the body just a response, an effect of the multitude of causes which are occurring every single moment based on the intelligent connection and functioning of all schemes coming together? For example, you go out and the sun is hot, and then you go back into the house because the sun is too hot. And you say, I went back into the house. Have you really? Or has the body just naturally reacted to the heat and you wanted to take some cover? And you went back into the house.
So all we actually can do is create karma.
Well, you're going to create action one way or another. You can just change your attitude.
By action, by a response.
By a response. But you can also change your attitude to what happens to you. Because see, all of these factors, right? Even if it's very bright right now in this house. Let's say someone doesn't like bright lights and they walk out, and then they justify that with, oh, the thing I was bored. But what the problem was, the light was too bright, and they think they walked out, they made a decision to walk out, but in fact the brights were just too bright and it didn't please them. So we have to start seeing how these constant causes and effects, which are just schemes within schemes operating together intelligently, causing us to do what we do, causing the body to do what it does, causing the mind to think in the way that it thinks.
The mind seems to demand concrete concept, because if Ishvara is essentially dynamic,
yeah.
What the mind's demanding is something, or to label something so that you can make sense of it. If you're attempting to absorb a teaching, you're absorbing concepts, and you're grappling with them, and you're concretizing, so to speak. So, oh, that's what that is. That's what that is. Yeah. So that's the inherent difficulty, I think.
And you're contemplating on those concepts too, in order to fully integrate them.
You're trying to put boundaries and trying to put form onto everything.
Ishvara is attributeless. It is all potential and all power. And Maya is when this all knowledge and all power is not yet manifesting. All right. Next week we will continue with this teaching why the I am not the doer. Because I am not the doer, this word flies around in the spiritual world. Like, I'm not the doer, it's very easy to say this, but to know the implications of what it means to say I am not the doer, we need to dig a little bit deeper. And what I haven't covered is a mind map, which is going to help us next week, which is the last week of this year. And one of them is roles. We need to understand that Ishwara is creating roles constantly for you as a jiva, which is completely dependent on the situation which is demanding. So if you're a father, then your role is to be a father to your son. If you are a firefighter, then your role is a firefighter. But as soon as you get out of that job, your role changes. So that means we need to start seeing roles as apart from the I am. This we will do next week. Yeah. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy. May all be free from illness. May all behold good things. And may no one suffer. Okay. Any questions, confusions, comments, or anything to address or clarify?
I was thinking the Maya is an illusion, but I'm wrong.
No? I am out.
Okay, Maya is, no, see, we don't use that in Vedanta. We don't say nothing's an illusion, because illusion, we have a word for it, tucham. Remember those three realities I said? Jiva Srishti, that is Jiva's projection. Ishvara Srishti, the empirical transactional reality, and we got Paramartika, which is the absolute reality. Now there's another reality called Tucham. Tucham is something that completely doesn't exist. Like right now we're seeing horns on Martin's head. That's Tucham. That's completely delusional.
Illusion.
Yeah. So Maya is not a delusion because we are experiencing Maya all the time right now. The one that's listening to these words, the ears themselves are created by this all-knowledge, all-power. The eyes to see this person talking are created by all-knowledge, all-power. The ears and the eyes and the brain and your ability to breathe air to stay alive is created by all-knowledge and all-power. Sustaining this person in order to hear this message. The memory is operational now, which certainly isn't an illusion, because if it was an illusion, you couldn't understand this language. In other words, you need to reference the English language to understand what I'm saying. None of these things are illusions. You're witnessing it and you're experiencing it right now all the time.
Yeah, I understood Maya as like a mirage, like you see it,
Yeah.
and then you walk towards it and it's not there.
Yeah, so
this
exactly.
is
Yeah, so it's just like, an example on the, you can look at it as a father and a son who are tired, thirsty on a sand beach. And of course, if you notice, the light is going to reflect from the blue sky and it's going to bounce on the sand because of the hot temperature. And the sand is going to have a portion that looks blue. And that's going to look like the water. So now, because due to the lack of education of the son innocently runs over to the mirage. What does that mean? If I don't know these three realities, then I unsuspectingly fall for them. This is called samsara. That means Maya, if I do not know that Maya is operating all the time, then I end up participating in this creation as the final reality. Just like the sun on the beach ends up going towards the beach, going on the desert, ends up going towards the water. Why? Because he's totally convinced that what he's seeing is real. But it's just a mirage created by Maya. While this father doesn't do anything. Why? Because the father knows that, yes, there is a certain combination, there's a certain environment which is producing these circumstances to look real, That means both the son and the father see the same thing, but the father, the wise person, doesn't fall for it. What does this mean? This means the wise person, the Jivan Muktaha, sees no different than an ignorant person. The only difference is a self-realized person recognizes that what they're seeing is, as you would say, a mirage. And why do we call it a mirage? Because it is constantly changing. It's here now, but it's bound by time and space, thus it's eventually going to end. So they never get fooled by, but what does a worldly person do? They take absolute and assign absolute reality to the transactional reality. Which is why the person is always looking for relationships and things and to satisfy themselves and good life and all that, which is fine, but you need to have awareness of paramarthika, unchanging reality. Why? Because that's the only constant here. We do not find refuge in something that is constantly modifying, called vikara. The only refuge you find is something that is constantly unmodified, the same, unchanging, which is you. So thus the masters tell us, go inwards, go back to the self, which you actually cannot do because you already are the self. So it's kind of an irony to say that. Yeah. That's why it's an understanding. It's not an action. We're not trying to close our eyes, meditate, and go somewhere. Why? Because there is nothing but consciousness. The one who's trying to go somewhere is already consciousness. Yeah. So it's just an understanding that comes how? By little educating us what is Ishwara, how it operates, how its orders operate together. Why? Because then we're not deluded. We don't delude ourselves anymore. We go, wow, the world is beautiful, it looks fantastic, and it's an amazing place, and I can certainly enjoy myself in it. But chapter 5 we are now in, a sannyasi doesn't do that. Why? Because it knows it's a mirage.
So the only absolute truth and the only reality is Brahman, which is self.
Yeah. Which is everything right now.
Which is everything.
Yeah. But to say that, we need to first break it down. Yeah. For example, right now you see nothing but material. Where was all this material dug out from? Earth. And what is Earth? Well, it's certainly one of the elements. Space, air, fire, water, earth. That means everything you see around you is Earth. And even you were Earth one day also, because you were just a collection of, all the food you've ate, which came from Earth. So you're just nothing but food. So all of these elements are operating, put together intelligently. How do we know that? Because has a human being done this? No, impossible. We don't even know how to manage our own emotions, let alone create the sun and the Earth to revolve around the sun. Yeah. Okay, so Maya, by the way, is also the second section of this course, and we're still in the Jiva section, so that means we can still afford to talk a lot about emotions and living a life on Earth, which is always the case. But in section 2, we're going to get a little bit more tricky with this Maya business.
So Maya is the potential to have an emotion. Is that what
Maya is just potential constantly manifesting itself in order of emotion. So Maya has nothing to do with emotion. It's just creating an order called psychological order. And because this psychological order, you can look at it like a container, is engaging with other orders called the environment, a dog, for example, and therefore this dog triggers the psychological order to experience the emotion of fear. Thus, the fear has nothing to do with Maya, nor Ishvara. It is just orders put together, functioning, and experiencing different effects based on the causes that they're engaging with themselves or with other functions. Like, you got the order of fish, which is providing and sustaining the order of shark. The order of tree, which is sustaining the order of forest. And oxygen, an ecosystem. So that means nothing here has any reason not to be. In other words, everything is meaningful in itself, which is why I keep saying, we cannot say I am just a witness. Anything born has a function. And if that function isn't served, that's a violation of your swadharma, basically. That's as good as Arjuna not willing to fight. And if he walks away, what happens? The society suffers. So in our worlds, we all play a role. So it actually doesn't matter whether you're speaking about yourself as a person or as absolute consciousness. It doesn't matter because there's only consciousness. Yeah. Which is why if we say, oh, you know, I don't want to be reborn, I'm doing this not to be reborn again. What's the problem with that kind of thinking? Who's the one that doesn't want to be reborn? There's still a person left. Who is the person? The mind, intellect, ego. There's still a doer who's trying to what? Live according to its likes and dislikes, vasanas. If everything is consciousness, why does it matter if the body is here or not? See, that's what's called freedom. There is no freedom in going, I need to know this in order not to come back. Who's thinking that? That's a stressful life because you don't have any guarantee whether you're going to come, whether there's going to be an incarnation or not. So this means understanding everything is already Sarvam Brahmaha, everything is Brahman. And you can never be apart from that because you already are that. And when that's understood, who cares if you're a woman or a man, starving or a king? It's the same thing. It's just a role played by Ishvara, which is totally impersonal. Why? Because anything born has a function to play. Even a homeless person has a function to play or induce compassion for someone else to see and witness and realize the suffering of a human being. Buddha, for example, went through that situation. He saw a bunch of starving men and was like, wow, you know, why is this suffering? So he went for a journey. So there's no such thing as bad or something that shouldn't be here. Everything plays its function and its role. Yeah. So this is the knowledge that we slowly start to assimilate by recognizing that Ishwara is all. There is nothing. There is only God here.
So when you see suffering, like in India, you travel around, you see a lot of beggars.
Yeah, which I will go to.
When you provide money or food or whatever to beggars, is that something that you think it's something that you satisfy yourself, or is it because of the suffering that you're providing them to lighten the suffering a bit?
Yeah, okay. If you see, it depends on your intention. If my intention it's like with philanthropy. If my intention is to make myself feel good, and if that comes first, and then in order to fulfill myself, or I want to be seen how I am donating to other people, then that's violation of Dharma. That's just building up the ego. But if I just see and I can give, and I give, now what's the response after you give? You feel good. That's a natural response. So that means if I give just because I'm willing to do that, because why? You can only give if you recognize everything is Ishwara. If I don't have that knowledge, then there's nothing but, well, you guys are Indians, I'm in my country, I've got nothing to do with you. You see, so it's all about knowing that everything is Ishwara, thus our behavior automatically coincides with that knowledge. So we become more giving. Because you're only giving to yourself, there's only you. There's a wave called a rich wave is only giving to what? Another wave, and both waves enjoy the same reality called water, H2O.
See, I've got a very terrible. Every time I go to India, I just give. I can't see suffering, and especially when the beggars are there.
You see suffering?
I see a lot of suffering, and I see pain in them, and I don't want to be in that situation, so I give. And when I give, I get told off by friends or whoever traveling with me, saying, you keep giving, this is what, they misuse and abuse these things. Yeah. You are one of the persons who are continuing this abuse by them begging and continuing that begging. I said, but I would not sit there and beg. If I'm not going to willingly sit there and beg, why should I let someone else beg? So I've got my understanding.
But that's a very complex thing.
I don't
it's not
see
just a simplistic, I don't have anything and I'm desperate for a bite, can you please give? That's not it. It's almost become an industry in some cases where mothers have chopped babies' arms off to be a better prospect as a beggar.
But they paid for the karma, I think.
No, of course. But what I'm saying is that that's quite true what you're saying, because you can get a couple of rupees out to give a little kid that looks like he's hungry, and immediately, bang, you've got 100 grand because you're an easy target. You know?
That happens to me all the time.
But what I found, I learned in Hindi, I can't remember what it is now, but I noticed if I was in one place for a while, you'd get to see that in the local restaurants and cafes, the toilets were always vile. No one would ever clean a toilet in the place, you know. Yeah. And so after a while, I asked the people. I said, why is it like this? He said, well, nobody wants to do the job, because it used to be the untouchables, and now the caste system's changed, and nobody wants to do that job, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, would you pay someone to do that job? Of course we do, but nobody wants it, And I got this guy outside wanting to get a few rupees, and so I learnt in Hindi, come with me, I'll get you a job, And then every time I make accounts, I'd say, come with me, and I'll take you, and I'd take them in and introduce them to the guy. I said, look, this guy wants to help you clean your bathroom.
Yeah, we're not talking, it's a dynamic situation, isn't it? It's a dynamic.
Like I see here in Melbourne itself, that's not very India, Melbourne. I see people lying in Swanson Street and all, lying down there for days and days and days with dogs next to it. They're able to feed the dogs, but they're lying there. And you think, should I give money? Shouldn't I?
Well, it's not a matter of should or shouldn't.
No, because I suppose you look at the environment you're living in, this environment. There is so many options here, so many choices here.
Yeah.
But why is that person lying there? What state of mind are they in?
Yeah.
So I question things like that.
Yeah.
And think for you to lie there, in a desperate situation, in the middle of a busy city.
Yeah.
What mind are you in?
No, it's fantastic.
What suffering are you in?
Yeah, but then they may not think it's suffering.
They may not. They may think it's a good life. Just lie down there and that's it.
They may. There's a nice story. A man who wanted to get rich, and he was asked by a sailor. So why are you making all this money? Well, so I can lie down on the beach. And the sailor says, well, I do that every day. Yeah, and also what plays a part is one's own personal karma, because we all play. See, if I just get into as a small child, and I drink, and I hang around with the mates, the friends, and I think this is a great life, and I lose interest in business, in job, and then little by little my boss kicks me out. And then after I get kicked out, I'm angry, and now my mates don't like me anymore, so they kick me out of their home. And now I find myself on the street. So there's always a chain of events, and every one of those chain of events gave me an opportunity to act. That's the privilege of a human being, to act. But I didn't exercise it. And because I didn't exercise it, I now end up in a situation where someone is now talking about me in a Vedanta class, So we're not ultimately, this world is just a continuation, it's an endless creation, you see? So ultimately, yes, there is a world, but your job here is not to get too stuck into others, why are others living like this? Because every body that is born is ultimately born here, why? Because in their previous incarnation, well, there's no such thing as previous, but I'll speak in time anyway, in the previous incarnation, this knowledge, I am self, I am existence, wasn't fully assimilated. So one gets the opportunity to do that again in this life. And what happens is, because as you said, there's so many options in this world, we get so easily sucked into them. And our friends pull us into them, and so it becomes like a normal thing. Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy myself and be popular and all this other stuff. And we forget, little by little, what is our original mission. Where the original mission was to discover my absolute nature. Yeah. So that's what we need to keep our eye on. Our nature. Yeah. So ultimately you're here for yourself. I'm not saying that in a selfish perspective, but you know what I mean. Discover who you are and the glory of Ishwara. And once glory of Ishwara is understood, there is no such thing as suffering. Because to me, say that someone's suffering, I would have to make certain conclusions about them, which depends on my own tendencies and my own memory, and then to ascertain or conclude and assign a label that makes sense to me called suffering. There's no such thing as suffering. There's just isness of Ishwara operating in different orders, which creates a person which apparently looks like they're suffering, but anything I say about them is actually inaccurate. Because it's just a body with different limbs in a certain location, time, space, that is located, and then in order for me to make sense of that, I need to say something. I need to call it a homeless person.
You're putting your mental projections onto somebody else's apparent...
No, I suppose like Buddha, saw the suffering or the death or whatever, and then he went in search for.
Well, yeah, but you don't, when you're calling it suffering, but you don't know what's going on.
No, I don't know. That's why I don't know what state of mind they're in. I don't realize that.
And even suffering is great because chapter 1, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna was suffering, chapter 1. And that's what propelled him to look deeper within himself. So suffering is a great catalyst. If you're happy, let's say you fall in love, right? If you fall in love and you really like that feeling of being close, is there any need to do anything other than just spend time together? No, you're just happy. That means you're happy in mithya, which is fine. But you're going to die. And that person's going to probably die also, or they will die.
But not exactly at the same time.
So that means there's nothing wrong with anything. You just need to be aware of where is my vision. Which means you can still be in a relationship or not in one. It doesn't really matter. But never lose sight of your vision. Of why am I born again? Well, not I, because that's taken personally. Why is there another body here? Yeah. Because see, as long as there's a body, I'll say there's other bodies. When there's no body, I cannot even make the statement there's other bodies. That's why we always ask about others on earth, because we are also incarnated. So that means just by being incarnated, you create all this other distraction now, or possibility to inquire, like, why are others there? Well, how about this? Why don't you just recognize your nature as the self and then see everything but yourself? And then there is no such thing as world or suffering or joy or peace or love. These are all just labels that we assign to make sense of reality. Just like one block of gold, right? You make a bangle out of it. You make a necklace out of it. You make an earring out of it. You make, let's say, a tree out of it. And you make me a human out of it. All of these ornaments belong to the same gold. That means the gold is unaffected, is undifferentiated, but it's as though seems to be differentiated by the ornaments. And yet all ornaments belong to the one same gold. And for us to make sense of a bangle and a necklace, we need to assign a name called necklace bangle. Otherwise, you can't call everything consciousness. Hello, consciousness. How are you, consciousness? Right? So that's the operation of how Maya operates. In order to work, to be in order to for the wave to recognize and to deal and engage with the reality, with the transactional reality, it has to use words, linguistics. That's why we have different names. So this can be very confusing because then we say, well, there's so much difference, but you need to know what is that one same gold, which is what everything's made of. Different ornaments, different names, but one same. When you melt every ornament, what do you get? The same gold from which it came from. So in summary, we're not excluding anything, we're not including anything, we're just seeing things as they are.